that's that. I just realized everybody is here to party.
Greetings and welcome, fellow barium inimists, fluoroscopists, and cross-table lateralists. I am your host, and I am not a radiology technician. Nope, I'm a technologist, and I've been in this field long enough to know that just because you came into my emergency room at 2 a.m. with a chronic back pain times 6 years does not mean the x-ray should be stabbed. This is the Radiologic Technologist Podcast for RadTechs by RadTechs. Thanks for listening.
I just realized everybody.
Hello and welcome to all my fellow technologists across the fruited plains. I am your host, Dr. Ron Jones, licensed in radiography and CT. Excuse me. I am the author, that's my bang kicking in there, adding to the party in the back of my throat. I am the author of the radiologictechnologist.com that you see behind me. It's a blog I've been working on for over 3 years to share information, to share my knowledge, to get it out there to people looking for more information on the world of radiology, and to help technologists and students alike to enjoy their schooling, to enjoy their jobs, to de-stress, to have a better work-life balance, which brings us to hopefully the conclusion of what turned out to be a terrific outcome on the ThedaCare versus Ascension debacle. And what the too long didn't read for the whole thing is the judge cited on behalf of the technologists that, lo and behold, you're allowed to work where you want to work, and you should not be forced to stay at an employer or with an employer who does not offer you decent wages and does not offer you a decent work-life balance. So let's just jump straight in. I've got even less time today than I did yesterday, but I'm going to try to commit to doing these Monday through Friday in the morning for at least a half an hour to go over the latest and greatest. I've got my stack of stuff sitting here to review. I won't be able to get to most of it today, but I do want to cover this very important injunction that was initially allowed. So I'm just going to jump straight to the New York Times. That was my timer telling me it was time to start. I couldn't wait. I didn't need the full 10 minutes to show prep today. New York Times, and what I do when I cover this type of stuff, or when I'm doing these live feeds, I have my chat popped out separately here, and I'll add it in the comments section. There's the link to the article, and let's read it. Judge lifts order preventing Wisconsin hospital workers from starting new jobs. ThedaCare had sought to temporarily prevent 7 employees, and I believe that was 4 IR techs and 3 nurses, from leaving for jobs at Ascension, saying the departures would jeopardize patient care. A judge sided with the workers on Monday. And if you want to hear how it kind of all unfolded, you can go back to my YouTube channel. I've done 2 live feeds so far since Friday, going over kind of what happened and how it started to go down and where we're at today. So, January 24th, 2022, a judge in Wisconsin on Monday lifted an order that had temporarily blocked 7 employees of ThedaCare, a major regional hospital system, from leaving for new jobs with another healthcare network until it could find people to replace them. That's unprecedented, right? The dismissal of a temporary injunction cleared the way for the workers to begin their new jobs with Ascension, Northeast Wisconsin. Last week, ThedaCare sued Ascension, seeking to temporarily keep the workers from leaving and touching off an unusual labor dispute rooted in twin crises roiling the healthcare industry: a shortage of workers, many of whom are demanding higher wages, and a raging coronavirus pandemic. Ascension Northeast Wisconsin said in a statement before Monday's hearing that ThedaCare, quote, had an opportunity but declined to make competitive counteroffers to retain its former employees, end quote. So if you didn't see my prior videos, basically one employee went to the competitor and applied for an open job that was on their website, and when they found out how much it paid and how much better the benefits were, they went back and told their team, and the team said, we're going to go work over there. Things are much better. And then the prior employer tried to sue the competitor to keep them from hiring the staff. The employees, members of ThedaCare's interventional radiology and cardiovascular team, were at-will employees and were not contractually obligated to stay with ThedaCare for a fixed time, according to Ascension, which is part of one of the largest Catholic healthcare systems in the United States. And that's interesting because it's that at-will employment that you often hear about on the other end of the spectrum when people get let go from their jobs, whether there was a valid reason or not. There's nothing you can do about being terminated from your job, even if you did nothing to deserve it, because you are an at-will employee, meaning the employer or the employee can leave at any time. Unless you have a contract stating that you have to serve out a certain amount of time, you can leave. And this ThedaCare tried to stop that, tried to stop these employees from leaving. So ThedaCare, which operates 7 hospitals and provides care to more than 600,000 people annually, said in its lawsuit that it was seeking to, quote, protect the community, end quote, by temporarily retaining the employees who accepted new jobs with Ascension in December and were supposed to start on Monday, yesterday. It added that the employees, who together make up a majority of a 11-person team, provide, quote, vital care for critically ill patients, end quote, and that Ascension, quote, should have known that this action would decimate ThedaCare's ability to provide critical care, end quote, to trauma and stroke victims in the Fox River Valley, a 3-county stretch from Green Bay to Oshkosh. Lynn Detterman, a senior vice president of ThedaCare South Region, said in a statement on Monday, quote, we know the situation has put the team members who decided to leave ThedaCare in the middle of a difficult situation, end quote. You think? You think you're kind of messing with their lives? They went on to say, quote, our goal was always to create a short-term, orderly transition, not to force team members to continue working at ThedaCare, end quote, she said. Yeah, okay. David Muth, M-U-T-H, a lawyer for Ascension, said in a motion filed on Monday that ThedaCare was blaming others for its own mistakes and that it had attempted to turn its, quote, poor management, end quote, into a disruptive personal emergency for everyone and anyone but itself. Last week, Judge Mark McInnes of Outagamie County Circuit Court granted ThedaCare's request for a temporary restraining order blocking the employees from starting at Ascension this week as planned, and told the lawyers for both parties on Friday to seek a deal, according to a previous report. The lawsuit was filed as hospital systems across the country, including in Wisconsin, are struggling to retain workers during the pandemic. But Joe Veenstra, a labor and employment lawyer in La Crosse, Wisconsin, said the lawsuit was an unusual and far-reaching attempt by ThedaCare to interfere with the free market and to keep employees without having to pay them higher wages. Slavery. We've definitely entered an alternate universe, Mr. Veenstra said, adding, now we have managements who are incapable of controlling labor and asking courts to prevent the free market from happening. It's just we're living in an upside-down world right now. He is absolutely correct. That was a ridiculous lawsuit. It was unclear how long ThedaCare wanted to retain the 7 employees. The hospital system said in its lawsuit that it wanted Ascension to either lend 1 radiology technician, because ThedaCare doesn't even know what their employees are called. They're called technologists, ThedaCare. Did they want Ascension to lend 1 rad tech and 1 nurse to ThedaCare each a day until it hired adequate staff, or pause its hiring of the employees until replacements could be found. Mr. Vintra said that for ThedaCare to restrict their employment in this way is very, very unusual. ThedaCare said in its lawsuit that in order to retain the Level 2 Trauma Center status at ThedaCare Regional Medical Center, the second highest category a hospital can achieve, it must be able to perform interventional radiology procedures 24 hours a day. That is impossible to sustain if the employees leave, it says. Guess should have thought about that before you underpaid them and turned down the opportunity to match your competitor. If the hospital is unable to provide round-the-clock interventional radiology care, such as restoring blood flow to a patient's brain after a stroke, it would risk the withdrawal of its Level 2 Trauma Center verification and be forced to transport patients elsewhere, like to the competitor. Timothy Breister, one of the employees mentioned in the lawsuit, said in a letter to Judge McInnes that Ascension in no way recruited any of the 7 of us, as ThedaCare has argued. Instead, Mr. Breister said one member of the team received an outstanding offer, not just in pay, but also a better work-life balance, inspiring the others to apply. After they received offers from Ascension, the 7 employees asked ThedaCare management to match Ascension's offer, Mr. Breister said. He said that they were told that, quote, by matching the offers, the long-term expense to ThedaCare was not worth the short-term cost, and that no counteroffer would be made, end quote. Well, doesn't that just tell you everything? He added that patient care would not be, this is one of my favorite parts, he added that, because ThedaCare was saying, oh, disruption in patient care, we can't allow this. He added that patient care would not be compromised because the services the workers performed at ThedaCare would now be done at Ascension, because ThedaCare, being greedy and not paying their employees enough and attaining stroke status on the backs of the work of the techs and the nurses, have now opened the door for their competitor to be able to offer those services by employing the staff that has the skills. So he added that patient care would not be compromised because the services the workers performed at ThedaCare would now be done at Ascension. He and the other employees could not be immediately reached on Monday. Mr. Detterman of ThedaCare said in an affidavit that if the employees left, the hospital would need to divert patients to facilities as far away as Milwaukee or Wisconsin, which are both 100 miles away. Unfortunately, it is foreseeable that some patients may die because ThedaCare cannot timely treat them without interventional radiology and cardiovascular services, she said. She added that diverting patients had become more difficult during the pandemic, which has strained hospitals as case counts have risen. And, gosh, is it really worth going on? Okay, 2 more paragraphs. Healthcare workers in Wisconsin, where 63% of eligible people are fully vaccinated against COVID-19, are dealing with a surge in cases. On Sunday, the daily average for new cases in the state was more than 21,000, according to the New York Times database. Mr. Muth, the lawyer for Ascension, said in his motion that the company had posted the jobs in part to address the same staffing shortages affecting the entire healthcare industry during the pandemic. So there you have it. ThedaCare trying to pull on the heartstrings of the community, of the courts, to stop a competitor from offering a better job, from offering employees a better work-life balance and higher pay, because they didn't want to do it. Because they weren't going to match the offer because it was too costly. Well, now you're not going to have stroke services. But of course, they admit, there's an article out there where they admit that they can continue to offer these services. They're not going to give up their stroke certification status. And like I said in my stream yesterday, all you have to do is call a staffing agency and get some techs in there and some nurses in there. So they've already admitted services aren't going to stop, which means all this hoopla about how it's going to affect the community was just pulling on the heartstrings, trying to sway the courts to stop this. I won't call it a mass exodus because we're only talking 7 people, but it was a good chunk of their IR team that left. So I'm glad to see a fair conclusion to this unnecessary drama. But what this has shown a light on, if you will, if I use that word correctly, what this has put a light on, a big spotlight on, and I hope it continues to get bigger, a bigger spotlight, is that for decades these healthcare systems, and it's probably true through other industries, but I've mostly been in healthcare for the past 30 years, but they've continued this decades old strategy of doing more with less, and it's just been metastasizing like a cancer in our health systems. The culture has been reduce staff, increase appointments, reduce full-time staff members, and increase the PRN staff, and provide less work-life balance for the people that are actually staying there to do the job. They have to start rotating shift coverages and satisfying the ever increasing regulatory and insurance expectations. So there's a change that's needed. If anybody in the boomer generation is still working in radiology, they're ready to call it quits. They're ready for retirement. There's not many of them still working in the environment. And then you've got Generation X and the sandwich generation that have been burning the candles at both ends for most of their working career, because they've been caught up in this type of environment. And at the same time, their studies show they're taking care of their parents and sometimes even their grandparents. They've had enough. And then the millennials and Generation Y or next gens, whatever you want to put it, whatever moniker you want to put on that generation, they're walking into it going, I'm not doing that crap just because you guys used to work those ridiculous hours for 50 cents an hour extra every year doesn't mean I'm going to do it. And then everyone under that, Generation Z and beyond, they're like, well, I've seen now that I can work from home and make the same amount of money in some industries. Why would I even want to go into a hospital with all these diseases, with all these nosocomial infections, just to get told I have to pull overtime and I have to take call and I have to settle for mediocre pay? It's imploding, and I've been calling this out for years. I did a study 5 years ago or more where we looked at just the state of Idaho where I'm at, and I recognized we were going to have about a 40% increase in patient load to the hospital system from the retiring baby boomers, just in general, that were retiring out of the working society and moving into retirement and starting to hit the healthcare systems with different levels of ailments. We weren't going to be staffed enough to handle that big of an influx of patients. And then now you add to it COVID and all the craziness that's going on, the vax mandate, firing technologists because they won't get vaccinated. Schools aren't putting out any more texts than they have been for the last 10 years, even though there's an increase in imaging ordering and patient volumes. So the last bit I'll leave on here, and I got to get going. I've got some temporary solutions for the technologists out there, and I posted this on a Reddit in the radiology subreddit last night. You can go read the whole thing. I'll put the link in the comments section. But here's what I propose, because something that has been perpetrated this long can't be solved overnight. But here's a few suggestions for my fellow technologists out there. If you aren't happy with your current employment, look somewhere else. One of my personal mentors through the years has been Jim Rohn, and he used to say, if you aren't happy where you are, move. You're not a tree. I mean, it worked for the ThedaCare employees. They're gone. If your work-life situation or your life circumstances make you feel as though you have no other employment choices, then go talk to your human resources about your concerns. But know that the human resources main function is to protect the company. Don't approach them with complaints, just approach them with concerns. And if nothing else, at least now you have a record of expressing your concerns to the human resources department. And you should probably consider following up your in-person visit with an email, something simple that just states, hey, thanks for taking the time to listen to my concerns about XYZ, And that will leave you with a record that you at least tried to go to the human resource department and state your concerns in case something comes up in the future and HR conveniently forgets that you were there. Also, I suggest consider writing emails to yourself when something occurs at your job that you're not happy with, especially if you're angry about it. Send it only to yourself. If you catch yourself writing an angry email, don't send it to anybody else because you will probably regret it. Capture all the facts of the events, like the date, the time, who was present, what they said, to the best of your recollection. Try to keep the emotion out of it. Try to just present the facts. But again, it's an email to yourself, so write whatever comes out of your brain at the time. Keep it in an email folder somewhere other than your work email, because if you do ever lose your job or quit your job, you won't have access to your work email anymore. And if the day ever comes when you feel maybe you need to decide whether you should quit or not, review that journal of emails that you have kept. It might make things more clear, because we tend to forget all the stuff that happens to us over time, right? So a journal comes in handy to help remind you of things that you may have forgotten, or come in handy in case you have to defend yourself. So, and don't forget that rad techs are qualified for many different career paths. I talk about this in my blog. I talk about this on my YouTube channel. But not only can we go back to school for advanced modalities like nuclear medicine, ultrasound, RRA, the registered radiology assistant, radiation therapy. There's lots of things we can go back to school for and add on to our skill set, which may be able to open the door for you to go to another employer and make more income. But you're also highly qualified for other jobs like application specialist for the vendor. Go out and teach people how to use x-ray machines or ultrasound machines. You could do radiology equipment sales. You could do equipment engineering, the people that repair the equipment. That pays big money. You could be a collegiate educator in the world of radiology. You could be a traveling rad tech. There's veterinary radiography. You can do imaging on animals, which is really cool. Work for a zoo and image the hippopotami. There's radiation safety officer. The list just goes on and on. If you want to see a list of all the jobs, you check out my blog and just do a search on the search bar for jobs or careers or whatever you want to call it. If you are burning out at your job, there's an article that I posted, and the best one of the ways, there's two ways to navigate my blog to find information. There's the search bar and there's the sitemap. The sitemap kind of lists everything by topic. The search bar obviously does what it does. If you go there and you just type in the word burnout, it'll take you to one of many articles, the first being the Radiologic Technologist Burnout, Signs, Symptoms, and Cures. In this article, I identified 11 different burnouts, what causes them, and then for each one of them, I give 2 suggestions on how to try to turn it around. So if you're burning out at your job, head over and try to read that article. Let's put that in the comments section. Let's go over here. Burnout. Hey, Annie, I see you in the comments there. She says, at my last job, I forwarded all the emails to my personal email concerning my problems I had with HR. When the new employer asked me about the details, I had it all right there. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Nobody's going to stand up for you like you. Brilliant. If you're feeling like you might be burning out, go check out that article. I review how to identify burnout. I give examples how to reduce the stress, and it concludes with what the signs are that might help you decide it's time to leave. Also, never allow abuse from the patients. We're talking about not having a good work-life balance because of the way the employer might be treating you, whether it be pay or too many hours or forcing you to go home and use your own PTO if you want to get paid. But let's not forget there's abusive patients. Remain professional while standing up for yourself. I have a video on, here, I'll take it from here. I have a video on YouTube. I got to post that in the comments section for you about how to deal with, I'm going to close that one. Come on, help me find it. Abuse patients. I have a video on abusive patients. Watch the video for a thorough discussion about dealing with patients under the influence of drugs or alcohol, psych patients, prisoners, or just plain angry people. Your job is important, but your safety is paramount. If you get injured and get taken out of work because you got punched or kicked or whatever, now there's other patients who deserve your expertise that can't get it. So your safety is paramount. There were many nights, and I was working the night shift, that I refused to perform an exam on a belligerent patient until they were subdued. You just simply go back to the doctor and say, Doc, that patient in bed 11 is swearing at me and threatening to hit me. I feel concerned for my safety. I'm going back to my department. Let me know if they calm down or if you subdue them in some way, restraints or whatever. But I fear for my safety, and I'm not going to put myself in that position. I never got blowback from that. I never had to defend myself for doing that, and so I recommend that. And then another option is to join groups of your radiology peers so that you can discuss the issues with people who are likely facing the same stuff you are. There's a half a dozen Facebook groups for rad techs. There's one that I started 3 years ago. It's grown to over 4,000 members. I'll pop that. FB groups, FB group. I'm impressed daily when I go in there and look at the questions being asked, and more so by the number of answers being given by our fellow technologists. There's also a couple of other groups in there that you can join to get a kind of a rounded approach. I'm definitely not trying to say that mine's the best, but there are a lot to choose from. If you don't like Facebook, and some people don't, and I know why, there's a subreddit that's a great place to ask questions and receive support. It's just called Radiology, and I've been a member of that group for several years and continue to be impressed by the moderators there. I'm sure you can find groups elsewhere. I mean, let's not forget the national organizations and the state organizations for different radiology groups. But look, in summation, our jobs are hard. Nobody knows how hard our jobs are but us and our spouses. We see things we can't unsee, like child abuse, spouse abuse. We see major traumas, and these things we can't unsee. And we're the last to get thanked, if ever, in our environment, while other departments seem to get it on the daily with big banners and kudos and celebratory weeks every year. So you guys and gals have been through hell and back to get your license. You've worked hundreds upon hundreds of clinical hours for free. Actually, you paid to work for free. You paid the tuition to the school to go work for free at the hospital. You passed a difficult national board exam. So don't sell yourself short. You're important. You matter. Any mistakes you make do not define you. You are not alone, and don't give up. And that's what I have to say today about the removal of the injunction in the state of Wisconsin against the IR techs and nurses who simply wanted to improve their lives and get a better job at a higher pay with an enhanced or a better work-life balance. So I'll pop over. Let me minimize that. And with that, I gotta run. I wish I had time to get into some other stuff in my stack of stuff here to review. I think it's cool if you got your latest newsletter from the ART. It's probably not going to show up thanks to my green screen, but if you got your latest newsletter, they announced that primary eligibility pathway and vascular sonography is now a thing. You can now go straight into vascular ultrasound without any prior schooling. Our craft is continuing to have to change with the times to allow for more people to go straight into what they want and get straight out onto the job, because there's such a need for technologists out there. Back in the day, you had to go through X-ray school first to get licensed before you got into certain advanced modalities. That's not the way it goes anymore. But that's another topic, and we have talked about that before on the channel. So, thanks to everybody for stopping by. When you get here, if this is giving you any value, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions from me, on my website, theradiologictechnologist.com, there's a contact button. You can drop in there, put your name, email, and send me a message. I'm happy to answer questions, and often I come on here and give answers in a video so that it might benefit more people. But I got to run. I'm going to take off. I got a full schedule today, and thanks for stopping by.
I just realized everybody is here to party.
Greetings and welcome, fellow barium inimists, fluoroscopists, and cross-table lateralists. I am your host, and I am not a radiology technician. Nope, I'm a technologist, and I've been in this field long enough to know that just because you came into my emergency room at 2 a.m. with a chronic back pain times 6 years does not mean the x-ray should be static. This is the Radiologic Technologist podcast for RadTechs by RadTechs. Thanks for listening.